first thing just to say is just to really think about how you're going to continue on. In my group, people were talking about meditation, and someone was talking about how they definitely need to come here. And that struck me as being very sensible. I mean, you could say I would say that, but then I could say you would say that I would say that. But I would say that, yeah. I mean, when I first started coming here 27 years ago or something, I came to the Wednesday class, and I just carried on coming. I didn't really... It became sort of, okay, I came here on Wednesday night, and that's what I did on a Wednesday night. What I've been struck by more and more is that we us in the West, we've got this really weird idea about the self. We really think that there is such a thing as a separate self. And I know there's a metaphysical dimension of that, but mainly I want to just talk practically. We think there's a separate self to context, don't we? That I move through different contexts, that I remain myself. I'm the same person all the time. We forget that context creates self. If we were all meeting in a pub, we'd all behave differently. Even if we're all the same people, if we all got transported down to the Camel, we'd all start behaving differently, just because of the different context. Yeah, if we, context creates you. We can't really think of ourselves as separate to context, but part of our Western sort of weirdness is that we think we can. So we think about how am I going to carry on my practice, whereas really it's more how am I going to carry on this. My context is a better question. How am I going to create a context in which I want to practice, in which I want to change and do what I know to be in my best interest? Yeah. One of the things I feel more and more clear about in my own life is that context creates my experience. If I go on retreat, just that context changes my mind. If I go back to visit my family, who I love dearly, but in that context, I become a lesser person. It's not their fault. I just seem to sort of, that experience when you go back to your family, you sort of go back to about 8 or 9, and you think, how did that happen? You think, I'm not like this anymore. To me, context creates the person much more than we think it does. So the question really is, how do I continue in a context that reminds me about what's in my best interest? Yeah. We all know you don't really need us to teach you. You know what's in your best interest, really. It's just that you forget, like I forget. We human beings are forgetting creatures. That's what we do. We keep forgetting the issue of our life, the issue that we're in, the existential issue that we're in. We keep forgetting that we were born and that we're going to die. We keep forgetting that we mean to contribute to this life. We keep forgetting that we mean to live deeply, not just get things done. We keep forgetting that we mean to meet people deeply rather than just bounce off social relations. It's not that we're bad, it's not that we're misguided even, we just forget. We kind of know, but we just so easily forget. So what we're trying to do here at the centre, really pretty much, is create a context that reminds you. That's what this figure's here for, that's why we've got this quiet room, that's why we've got this course. Really all we're doing is reminding each other about this life of ours that's so precious and can go so badly wrong. Terrible things, and our mind can be pretty terrible in its own right. It can cause terrible things. So how are you going to carry on getting involved in a context that helps you grow? Somebody else in my group was just saying they started to notice that actually they were a bit lonely, and that coming here and talking about how they're getting on, they weren't doing enough of that. Yeah? They weren't doing enough of talking in a genuinely serious way, not in a sort of over-earnest, super serious way, but in a genuinely human and serious way. We human beings really need that, but there's so little set up for that. Yeah? So just really to sort of remind you, extol you, to suggest that you really think about how to carry on in a context. So I want to talk about this last element of the course. Do you want to switch the fan on above you as well? There's another light. It'll go green. One says on, and the other side. That's it. Okay. Oh, it's not going off. Okay. So what I want to do this evening is kind of change the metaphor, and I want to remind us where we've been, and I want to now talk about what this has all been about from a Buddhist point of view, except for I'm never very satisfied even with that idea of Buddhist, but from a deeper point of view, from a more integral, final point of view. So, the first part of the course, mindfulness of day-to-day life, day-to-day mindfulness, mindfulness of the body, stepping out of our chattering, talking, ruminating mind into direct experience of the body, noticing Vedana, noticing the sensations of the body, this feeling sense that we were talking about in the meditation. Then noticing our states of mind, whether in a good state of mind or a negative state of mind. All that part of mindfulness is about developing integration, becoming whole, creating this capacity for wholeness, for being unified. So what we're looking for in our life, whatever life we're living, is a life that's more and more authentic, integral, unified, harmonious, flowing together, not broken up, not dissipated. That's really what those first stages of mindfulness are about. Consciousness is like a great river. In some Buddhist texts it's talked about as a torrent, which I think is very eloquent for our mind. Our mind is like a torrent. It's constantly moving, constantly agitated in a way. Very often that torrent splits up into different tributaries, now going this way, now going that way, and so on. Very often it kind of breaks up. You know what it's like. Your mind, my mind, is a torrent, a constant torrent. Even when I'm sleeping, there's a torrent running through my mind. So the first goal of human life is to start to feel that torrent of our mind and give it some unity, some harmony, some inner cohesion. It's a sort of bad word for a torrent, isn't it? But if you imagine this whirling, splashing, sort of distractible mind, you're trying to find within that a deeper current, a unifying current, like a whirlpool that's drawing all of those energies together, liberating all those energies and drawing them together. So often they're just dissipated. And we've never been in a time where we can dissipate our energies more easily. We've never been in a time where we can waste time more easily. Our life can just dribble away, can't it, in trivia that we can't remember even the moment after we've done it, never mind the next day. So what we're trying to do at first in integration is uncover our energy and have it flow in a more and more unified, harmonious way. And the more that happens, the more your energy is released. The less you're caught up in inner conflict, in dissipation, in distraction, in exhaustion, and then overwork, all those sort of things that we so easily are prey to. You start to live from your own side. One of the things that has been striking me that if we don't do this, we make ourselves vulnerable to market forces. If we're not vulnerable enough already. As soon as we're not owning our life, there's a whole world out there trying to own it, trying to get into our mind, trying to manipulate our mind so that we buy things, believe things, want things. And that's happening like it's never happened before. It's everywhere now is trying to grab your attention and manipulate it for its own ends. If you don't own your attention, the market will. You'll be prey to those conflicting market pressures. And what the market's very good at doing is getting you to want something. You get what you want. You have that little buzz of, oh, that's right. And then you start to feel dissatisfied. You get that iPhone-y thing, and then you start to feel dissatisfied. And just as you start to feel, actually, it's not working, this iPhone, it's not really giving me the satisfaction I want, they come up with another iPhone. And the market is quite brilliant at knowing how to do that. Gets you to want something, gives you something, lets you feel, lets you just get a bit bored and restless, and like this consumerism doesn't work, and it gives you something else, a new version of it. And so it keeps us going, fruitlessly preoccupied in trivia, really. We all do it, myself included. Not with iPhones, it's poetry books for us. I am going to go to a sort of support group about that soon. Poetry Anonymous, probably. I'm glad I got that from the chest. So the first great stage of spiritual life of human life, is to become integrated. It's just to become living from our own side, living the life that we've chosen, not the life that others choose for us. Living the life that is a real response to your existential predicament, which couldn't be more dangerous. You're going to, the one thing you absolutely don't want to happen will happen, and you've no idea when. You could not be in a more frightening situation. We cushion that very much, don't we, with modern life. It's amazingly beguiling. I went to the cinema with my niece the other day. I went to see Paddington. It's very good, actually. Particularly the bar thing. Anyway, I'll let you see it. And what struck me, I went there with, and she's lovely, my niece, she's so lovely, and had all these adverts before. And for a while, you're lulled into this sense that there's nothing wrong with life. Everyone's smiling and having happy Christmas and watching lovely films. I forget, that we're in this terribly parlous situation. That's what we do, we forget. So in this first great stage of human life, we need to own our life. We need to grasp our life before it's taken off us by other people, or before we just run on automatic. We live without really noticing it. So those are those first stages. That's what they're really about. They're owning your life, taking full responsibility for your life, which means not blaming anybody else for your life. It means owning up to your life, turning up to your life, owning it, living it from your own side. Very, very difficult to do. It's probably more difficult to do now than ever, because so many people are out there want your mind. They want it. They want to use your mind. So that's the first part of the course, really. Then we came on to mindfulness of dharmas. A simple way of putting that is mindfulness of the things that you know are in your own best interests. I mean, I know, and you know what's in your own best interest. You know it's not a good idea to be emailing until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then, you know this stuff. You know that it's a good idea to sleep more, eat healthily, meditate, make friends. You know all that stuff. I know all that stuff, but I keep forgetting. You keep forgetting. Yeah? So, mindfulness of dharmas is about remembering to do the things that are in your own genuinely best interests. And of course, one of the things you start to notice is that aversion towards others, hatred towards others, which is much more common in our mind than we think. There's much more hatred in our mind than we think. That aversion never works. We try in our mind to push people away, to obliterate them, but the more we do that, they're closer and closer in our mind. Just the anatomy of hatred. You don't need to be a philosopher to see that it just doesn't work. You can end up spending more time thinking about the people you dislike than the people you love. You know that thing when you obsess over a grievance? Before you know it, they're right at the centre of your life. So the Buddha's not saying, tell you what, it'd be nice to be a good, nice person. He's just saying, that doesn't work. Try it, do try it. Get into a rage, get into an argument in your head. try really having a go at somebody, see whether it makes you feel happier. It just doesn't work. So as you start to practice mindfulness, as you become more integrated, you start to notice, tell you what, it really doesn't work. It really just doesn't work. It makes me feel wretched. And what does work is when I give, when I'm a bit friendly, when I have an evening where I just read a book instead of go from one screen to another. What works? You start to notice what works, and you start to notice what doesn't work. That's what integration does. It helps you see your life more clearly, rather than just be caught on the frothy surface of your life. You start to see, the reason I'm in a bad mood is because of this, because I've got into that blaming thing I do again, or I've got into that I'm so special thing I do again. You start to notice, because your mind gets clearer, you start to notice what you're really doing. Yeah? So as soon as you notice that, you start to think, okay, I need to start to do things that are in my own best interest. I need to go on retreat, I need to meditate, I need to make friends, I need to turn off the computer, I need to go to the gym, I need to live, for heaven's sake, rather than plan to live. So that is a stage of what Sangharakshita, the founder of this order, calls the stage of positive emotion. Although you could think of it as a stage of emotional strength. You're trying to actively cultivate those things that are in your best interests. The key point of that is to give, I think. You just give. You can always give. You don't need to be in a good mood. You don't need to be wealthy. You don't need to be talented. You can just give. It's really simple. You can just say, would you like a cup of tea? Bob's your uncle. You're just giving. Yeah? Just give. My own experience of practicing the Dharma for all this time and with friends is the people who make the most progress are the people who give most. Really, it's as simple as that. Even if you're not very deep, even if you're not witty and what makes a difference is giving. I've met people with very remarkable minds who don't really give very much, and their spiritual life, their human life, doesn't deepen. You need to just give. I need to give, you need to give. I just need to keep remembering that that's more important than having and owning. Yeah? Another way of putting it is you need to make a contribution. When you make a contribution, you feel, gosh, I'm a person who can make a contribution. This way out of this impasse of self-hatred, if you ever get into that, is to make a contribution. As soon as you make a contribution, that changes your self-state. Yeah? So the second great phase of human life, truly human life, is to make a contribution, is positive emotion, emotional strength, which is the stage of action. So on the basis of awareness, noticing what goes on in your mind, noticing how you relate to other people, how you relate to yourself, starting to be more integral, starting to be more honest with yourself, you can then take actions, wise actions, that flourish your life. And you're not doing that because you don't like yourself, you're not doing that because you want to be approved of, but because you start to see that when you give, when you feel grateful, when you help out, you kind of feel better. Your consciousness arises in an enriched way. Your self-sense changes. This is the thing that you always notice on retreat. I was thinking, I'm going back on this Christmas retreat, I've done about 25 of them. And my great friend Maitreyabandhu the other night said, why are you going again? And I thought, I don't know. I can't remember. I seem to think it was a good idea about this time last year or something. One of the reasons I'm going is because my friends are going and I want to be with my friends. Simple as that. But another reason is because it's one of the experiences in my life where I see people change in front of me. It's really noticeable. People's faces change, their posture changes, their relationship with each other changes. You start to see around you the kind of world that you want to create, the kind of world that human beings need. Personally, I don't find anything more gratifying than that. What's happening then is this second stage of our human life is being given conditions in which it can flourish. You see what I mean? That you do some positive stuff, like you meditate, you get up, things like that, you have a breakfast, You don't do your emails before breakfast. You get up, you go and have a meditation, you have breakfast with people around you, you don't listen to whatever it is, you then go off and have another meditation. You do those very ordinary human things, go for a walk on the hill. Before you know it, your mind state is changed. And your mind state change, your relationship with other people changes, your self-beliefs change, your attitudes change. Just because when you act differently, your consciousness is changed. It's called the law of karma. Yeah? When people talk about karma, that's really what they mean. The law of karma just means that if you act from a positive state of mind, if you give, your mind changes in that moment. If you don't believe me, just try it. Go home, do something that you wouldn't normally do. If your partner is a person who always empties a dishwasher, go home and empty it. Just give, and immediately your mind changes slightly. Yeah? So that's the second great stage of a truly human life. That's really what we want. We want to die and think, I've really lived, don't we? No one wants to die thinking, tell you what, I missed it. The big show, I missed it. No one wants to do that. And no one wants to die thinking, I did lots of work. Mostly when people die, they want to think, I loved people. I gave to people. I cared for people. I helped them a bit. I'm not even that convinced that you'll be bothered about mindfulness. What you'll be bothered about is, have I given to this life? Have I made a contribution to this life? That's what will matter, isn't it? It's love that will matter, really. That's what really matters. And that's the second stage of human life. And without those two stages, our life won't amount to what it needs to. But if we start to practice those two stages, and that's just a human matter, it's not a religious matter, it's not a spiritual matter, it's not a secular matter, all of those terms are inadequate. It's a human matter to make a contribution and become unified. But if you start to do that, and if you do that deeply enough, you want more than that. You think, yeah, that's great, but I want more than that. Or at least some people want more than that. Some people are happy with that, that's enough. I was never happy enough with that. I didn't get much of it, actually. It's another matter. I came along to this centre very unhappy. And I had a lot of work to do in just becoming integrated and more emotionally positive. Maitreyabandhu, my friend upstairs, came along very quite happy and non-neurotic, and he didn't have so much work to do in that way, but I did. So what happens, I think, is you start to practice and you start to get a taste of something more. So you become more integrated through mindfulness. You cultivate emotional strength through bringing to mind the teachings, becoming more aware of others, and becoming more aware of objects, art and nature. So all of those aspects of this mindfulness course has all been about emotional strength. Do you see how important that communication exercise is, really? It's a kind of metaphor for what you're trying to do, to come into real relationship with other people. That's emotional strength. To enjoy the natural world is emotional strength. Yeah? So, on the basis of integration and emotional strength, you start to feel this yearning for more still. That's not enough for us human beings. As human beings, want more than that. So what can happen is, I've been writing about this at the moment, and my metaphor for it in the book is, that time you go and see a concert, and you really, those magic moments where you fall into the music, and instead of you being outside the music, you're inside the music, and you are the music while the music plays, as T.S. Eliot says. You're inside the music, and you feel, that's it. That's what I want life. I want the music. Yeah, and then sometimes you feel that, and then you say, "Oh, I'm really enjoying this. Is great." And every time you do that, you step out of it again, or you say to yourself, "Oh, there's a lovely bit coming up," and you step out of it. Or this is a lovely bit, this bit, and you step out of it. every time you talk about it in your mind, even though you're really in it, you leave it. You push yourself away from it. We've all had something of that experience. Or you might have experienced in meditation where you're getting more and more absorbed in the breath, for instance, and it starts to be rapturously pleasurable, and you think, oh, this is nice. And as soon as you think that, it's gone. You think, oh, okay. I won't do it. You end up sort of, if you've had those experiences, you can have incredible experiences in meditation. Before you know it, you think, that was nice. And the next time you've got this great big baseball glove behind your back, ready to snatch this juicy experience. Of course, it never comes. Yeah? So frustrating. You can get into this life, and suddenly it's so much richer, so much better than you thought. And as soon as you think, this is great, it's gone. You think, okay, I won't do it. Okay, don't do that. But then it doesn't come because actually you're sort of waiting for it. And then sometimes it sneaks back in. Just recently I went to see the Turner show, as I said, and I've been this really good talk with a good friend of mine, an old friend of mine, before I went in. So I didn't expect it to touch me very much because I didn't have much time. And I just went to look at this one painting near the end, which I've seen many times, and it really touched me immediately. That's what I want. I want life itself. I don't want me talking about life. I want life, you see? So what you start to realise, and again, this is an observation, not a theory, not even really metaphysics. What you start to realise is that self gets in the way. Just as you get closer to life, self keeps getting in the way. You keep getting in the way. Even you in a good mood gets in the way. Oh, great, this is great. As soon as you say this is great even, you're out of it. Self keeps getting in the way, gets in the way of life. And what we want as human beings is all of life. We never seem to be satisfied until we have all of life. So the third great stage of human life, of spiritual life really, which I write about completely differently in this chapter, but is what I'm now writing about is the stage of spiritual death, which is where you need to die to yourself on the basis of integration, on the basis of emotional strength. So not on the basis of any kind of negative thing about yourself. Do you see what I mean? It's just you wanting more. You're not trying to get rid of yourself. That's just sort of neurotic and unhealthy. You're starting to have an experience of there being much, much more to life. And you want to get out of the way so that life can just be there. Yeah? So that's where really this mindfulness is taking us, is the deepest place it takes us is to realise that however happy we are, however integrated we are, we want sort of more than that. We want life itself. And if we don't have it, what easily happens, we sort of get stuck in a kind of lovely life that's a bit sort of, I don't know, I meet people quite a lot, you practice Buddhism, and it's easy to get into this lovely life where you just end up, it's nice enough, but it's not really going anywhere. You sort of start to rest on your laurels a bit. It's one of the great dangers as you practice Buddhism, even as you get ordained, that you start to sort of settle with, that happy, integrated state, which is a good state. But there's more. And spiritual death is about stepping into that more, which is about dying to yourself a bit more. It's very difficult to explain, because we don't realise that there's more. I don't know how to explain it. See, that one of the issues is that we don't realise that there's so much more to being human than we thought. We've got this silly kind of Western rationalist, materialist, secular idea about self, as if common sense reality is us, and what we can do is get that common sense reality as nice and as comfy and as pleasant as possible. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but when you experience something beyond that, do you see what I mean? You realise that, that's just like trivial by comparison. So a little story from my life is I when I was ordained 25 years ago, I was on a 4-month retreat. In the middle of the 4-month retreat, I'm going on another 4-month retreat next year. I was ordained in the middle of just after 2 months, and you're privately ordained first, so you're given your name, which represents who you really could be in your life. And then after the ceremony, I was left alone. In those days, we were left alone all night, and I meditated. And during that meditation, I saw things as they really were. Don't worry, folks. This is not a. This is not a. This is not where I say I am actually the Buddha. All right, you don't have to laugh that much. So don't worry, folks. No, it's not a claim moment. It's just when you thought you were safe to get in there. Anyway, for a moment, I saw things as they really were. I mean, it's a simple enough way of putting it. My mind, I don't know how it happened. I didn't make it happen. You can't make it happen. What happened, I can't explain it because it goes beyond language, but what happened in the experience was immediately a metaphor came to mind. And the metaphor was I'd been looking at life through the wrong end of a telescope. And I thought life was small and cramped and about me, and it was worrying because that me was going to end, and that me wasn't happy, and I'd never been happy, and I'd been bullied and all that stuff. I thought that was life, yeah, and I'd been trying to improve that me that had been bullied. I'd been trying to get out of my victim stories. I'd been trying to. It was all about this little dot that I'd been looking at all my life, and then it was as if somebody just sort of gently, with infinite gentleness, just turned the telescope round. And I just thought, oh, it's like that. And it's not that it wasn't about me, but it's not about me in any important way at all. It's like I've been looking at a tiny bit of stitch work and thinking, I don't know what that is. It doesn't make any sense. And suddenly I saw the whole pattern. The whole pattern. And everything made sense in that moment. Everything. There wasn't anything but sense. It was a sort of perfection. Perfection is sort of Christian term, so it doesn't quite work, but nothing could possibly ever go wrong in that moment. It just wasn't possible at that level. And of course the vision closed, and I started worrying about my name, because my name means friendly friend. And I'm thinking, what my friends will think, they'll think you're not friendly at all. So I went straight back into my usual neurotic self. The vision closed. But you see that if I basically didn't have enough integration, and I didn't have enough emotional strength to just let that vision wipe me out. You see what I mean? For that vision of the whole pattern to wipe me out. If I could have died then, not metaphorically, if I could have died to me and my problems and my concerns and oh dear about my name and what would people think, if I could have died to that then, I would have been like that. I wouldn't have gone gold and but I would have gained a transcending insight which would never have been. I would never have needed to go back on it. I would have continually changed from that moment. As it was, the vision opened and then closed again. And many people have vision experiences like that. It's not unusual. So do you see that's spiritual death? It's dying to what's in the way. I'll carry on and then it's dying to what's in the way. When you die to what's in the way, everything comes. It's like self is this sort of silly little sandcastle that we've worried about and put those little shells on and decorated, and then when you die to that, the ocean washes it away, and you are the whole ocean. You were this little thing that was trying to defend itself, and then you are the whole ocean. I mean, what you experience is life, spontaneously flowering within you, without self-will, without having to think about it. My metaphor in the book is it's not a great metaphor, it's a bit like being in a zone in sport. When you play sport, every sports person knows that you can get into the zone where you suddenly play the game with less effort, with almost no effort, with this incredible acuity, with a level of intelligence and perspicacity that you don't usually have. It seems magical. You don't seem to be doing anything. And afterwards you feel completely fine and rested, and it just appears. You couldn't have willed it, but it happens, doesn't it? All sports people have known this, and they know that when they're in the zone, they're playing at their absolute best. And as soon as they congratulate themselves for it, they're out of it. As soon as they chastise themselves for falling out of it, they're further out of it. Yeah. So metaphorically, the Buddha is like someone who's reborn into that zone. So everyone he meets, everything he does, is like being in a zone. If he meets somebody that's sobbing with tears, he responds to it immediately, completely. If he meets somebody that's really happy, he responds completely to it. He doesn't need to think about a response. Just as a tennis player doesn't need to think about running to the court, their whole body, mind and heart is all moving together without them moving it. Everyone's had a taste of it, haven't they? So what we call that, what a slightly clumsy way of calling that, is spiritual rebirth. That because you've got out of the way, life just does its thing and you don't need to be there. If there's pain in front of you, you do what you can to alleviate it. If there's happiness in front of you, you rejoice in it. If there's a creative solution to be discovered, you discover it. Intuitively, spontaneously, without... So the way into that, and that really is where I want to sort of finish in a way. There's more to say about these stages, but the way into that spiritual rebirth, as I'm calling it clumsily, that zone, is your imagination, which I touched on the other day. That is the quality, the faculty we all have that takes us into that new realm of experience. We've all got it, but like any faculty, it's more or less developed. If a faculty is like eyesight, it's just some people see more like an artist and some people don't. Okay? So it's a faculty that we all have, but we need to uncover it and we need to make it more and more vivid until imagination is our life, effectively. The trouble with the language of imagination tends to be associated with the arts, but it's just as much to do with a business meeting or a friendship or anything. It's life, really. The way you understand me now is whether you're imagining me. It's not literally the information I'm telling you. It's whether you're getting me that makes a difference. Yeah? So it's this imaginative faculty that is the key to our human ripening, really. What mindfulness does is it fosters that faculty in a healthy way. So without enough mindfulness of the body, our imagination splits off from the body, doesn't it? So imagination can be alienated in the sense of fantasy. So in some ways, human imagination has done terrible things. It's split off from actual direct experience. So without enough body awareness, your imagination doesn't grow in a very healthy way. It grows in a sort of fantastical, heady way. Yeah? So you need to keep on rooting imaginative life in your body. Without enough positive emotion or emotional strength, your imagination can be biased by your negativities, by your ill will, by your anxieties, and so on. It gets contorted by that. It even can get mixed up with things like mental illness and so on. So there needs to be a really good basis in emotional strength. Without a degree of spiritual depth, imagination easily becomes about me again. As soon as it's about me, you've lost it. That's one of the great lessons of life, isn't it? As soon as it's about you, you've lost it. I used to paint. I was at art school when I came here, And that's when I kept on, as soon as the painting started to go well, the key was, how did I let the painting go well and me keep on just falling into that rather than saying, oh, it's going well. As soon as I thought it's going well, I'm going to be interviewed on the South Bank show. It's amazingly quickly how you want to be interviewed on the South Bank show. As soon as that happens, it's not going well. And guess what? I'm not going to be interviewed on the South Bank show. As soon as it's about you, you get in the way. You get in the way in the concert, in your friendship, in your desire to love other people. As soon as it's about you, you get in the way. Yeah. So we need that kind of ongoing dying to that, so that imagination can completely flourish. And when that imagination does flourish, it flourishes through the particularities of our life. It will come through your life, each of you individually, in a different way than it does through mine. The project of your life is discovering how imagination, genuine imagination rather than fantasy, and fantasy is always about yourself, really. The secret of your life, the task of your life, is how genuine imagination comes through you, the particularities of your life. Yeah? When you become a Buddha, you'll become a you-like Buddha. Like I'll be an extrovert Buddha, as you can tell. Maitreyabandhu will be a very quiet Buddha, because he's introverted. Your imagination will come through the shape of your life. Yeah? And our job in life is to allow that to happen in a healthy, integrated, mindful way, so that we live up to what we really want in life, which is to live as fully and completely as possible. That's surely the whole point. Yeah? So it's not how I've talked about it in the chapter. I've talked about it in a very different way, but that's really what a sort of Buddhist vision of what we've been doing is. First of all, cultivating integration, this integral self, this unified self that's living from its own side. Then cultivating this emotional strength, this resilience, this capacity to make a contribution. Then deepening those things until we realise that we're getting in the way and that life wants to flower even more. So we need to start to find ways of dying to egotism, really, to this constant me that we keep on rehearsing. And the way to do that is to foster our imagination. And that's fostered primarily through this path of mindfulness that we've been exploring on this course. Mindfulness, the result of mindfulness, is not this, sometimes people think that we're like doing this mindfulness technique all the time. The result of mindfulness is this living imagination, which is constantly opening up, constantly engaging, constantly alive. Yeah? It's much more like that. Whether that's at work, at home, on the bus, something in you is just living more and more and more. That's where mindfulness is trying to get us, not into this sort of self-discipline, controlled thing, which can seem so analytic and heady, but a full living, yeah? A full imaginative living.